Everyone. My name is Rachel Cozy, and I'm the founder of our Empowered Women's Group, and I'm joining you from Venice Beach, Los Angeles. I just wanted to begin by sending some positive energy and love to everyone out there. I hope that your families and you are happy, healthy, and thriving right now. Given the current climate, we discussed as a group and decided that now more than ever, our network needs a better sense of community, connectedness, and purpose. So we've decided to modify to an online format, and this is our first virtual event, so thank you for joining us for this. Before I introduce Carolyn, I just wanted to provide some background information on our organization. I myself am prior military, and in 2017, I transitioned from overseas, and I had to start my life over from scratch. So I personally wanted to find a way to connect strong, like-minded women in an environment where we could really learn from each other's experiences and connect on a deeper level. So we created our first event was a brunch event in DC in 2018. Since then, we have expanded to the West Coast in a happy hour, and now we're online. Our guest speakers have ranged from relationship coaches to money managers to female founders and CEOs. And if you're interested in the work that we're doing and would like to attend a future event, you can visit us online, empoweredwomenbrunch.com. Tonight, we have another exceptional speaker, Carolyn Flower. She is a best-selling author, and she's been helping her clients for over 28 years meet their publishing goals. And tonight, she's going to walk us through how to create abundance during crisis. So, Carolyn?
Hello, everybody. Hi, everyone. It's so great to meet you all, and it's so great to be here. I was really pleased to meet Rachel recently, who told me a little bit about her organization, which I loved because empowerment is part of the platform and part of my business model. So I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you to Rachel and to Lynn and to Anna for having me here this evening. This evening, my time. I'm in Montreal, Canada. So I'm in the Eastern time zone. So we've got quite a number of people in the room, and you're all in different parts of the world. So welcome to the first Zoom platform meeting for this organization. So really proud to be here. I just want to take a moment before I begin. I just want to set a bit of an intention for what I hope to bring to you during our time together this evening. I want to bring our awareness to the power that we all have, the power that we all have to change our perspective by changing the way we think. And when we change the way we think, we can move through anything, but more particularly in the time that we find ourselves in, which I call the great pause. And I call it that just because in my experience over the last 6 weeks, and everybody in this room has had a uniquely different experience during, I won't even call it what it is, but the pause for me is that it has asked of me to really take a step back and recalibrate, take a look at where I am and where I want to go. And of course, there's a ton of emotions that have come with that because all of us have got, we're in different places. We have different rules and regulations that we're being asked to follow. But I think that if we understand one common thing is that the way you think creates your emotional stance, and the way your emotions are from day to day will actually create the results that you have in your life. So no matter where you are right now and however you feel about where you are in this particular pause of life, you have the ability to change wherever you are to wherever you want to go. So I just want to just start with that intention and hope that in our time together, you can take a look at where you're at, where you want to go, and I'll give you a couple of strategies that might help you get from one place to the next. So if you let me, I'm going to share my screen. I didn't do a full slide deck, but I did do a doc that I think I would like you to just follow along if you could. Everybody see that okay? Great. So we've called this, creating abundance during crisis, the great pause. And the fact of the matter is we can create abundance anytime. And abundance it's a big word. Abundance covers our day-to-day thinking. It covers, personal, professional, financial life. But more particularly for what we want to talk about tonight, how do we create a mindset that we can go to, that we can rely on to bring our emotional state and our feeling state um, from a fear place through to a growth place. And I take my clients through this process all the time. Sometimes they know I'm taking them through the process, to be honest. Sometimes they don't. But the goal is to get to that place of growth. So I'll just share a little bit about me, right? Just so you know who I am. So it's really brief. I'm the CEO of Oxygen Publishing, which is a division of my company, Carolyn Flower International. I've been around for 28 years. And basically, I help people write books and build authority in the marketplace. So my company has been around in the communication field for a long, long time. And then about 6 years ago, I migrated into the literary division, which is who I am as a writer. So I'm the best-selling author of Gravitate to Gratitude, Journal Your Journey. And I have proudly served my clients now in the month of June for 28 years. So to sum it up, I help people become authors. And then I help them amplify the influence that they have or that they want in the marketplace by writing a book that matters to impact the world. And what happens in my profession is that a lot of the first part we need to take care of before we can get to the second part. We can't get to the writing and the publishing of a book without becoming the author. And that part is really about how we think and our beliefs. So you need to believe in your extraordinary story. When people come to me and tell me they have ideas for a book or they've written a book, they want to write a book, the first thought they have is, well, who am I to write a book, or why would anybody care about a book? And so my whole reason for being really here in business is to help you believe that your story matters. And I believe everybody's extraordinary story matters. So my story started when I was a kid and I was living in an environment that wasn't super healthy. I had a parent who was mentally ill, but I didn't know that at the time. And I didn't have siblings. So my strategy for figuring out how I would get through one day to the next was to write. So I would write in a journal and I would write about how I loved my bike and how I loved my room and my friends and, all of the things that I didn't realize I was actually writing gratitude at the time. But this is how my strategy was for coping. We all have something that we go to that, and I'm glad that it was it was a positive way for me to get what I was feeling out. So when I was 9, I had a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Gold, and she asked me to bring a lot of my writing to her. And she said, I really love your writing. So at 9 years old, I believed I was a published author. Like, she built belief in me. And there was no question in my mind. She used to make me write my poetry out on bristleboard, right? No phones. I'm aging myself. But she used to put them up on the classroom wall, and she built belief in me that I was an author. So from that moment forward, there was never a question in my mind that I would write books, that, my first job was in a library. There was something about the words, something about the literary profession that was always calling me. I ran the school newspaper and I became a columnist and became a communication specialist. So my areas of expertise really in the belief part, in the building belief, in the becoming the author part that comes first, mindset, personal growth, gratitude, and goal achievement. So some of my personal mentors that I've worked with one-on-one, Bob Proctor, Deepak Chopra. Deepak actually got a copy of my book first before it was published, with my gratitude. Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Grant Cardone, and many of you on this call have your mentors. We need mentors. We need to be able to get our belief built by locking into different extraordinary talent out there. So I wanted to include some of my favorite books because I'm often asked this question. I have a study habit and I study powerful texts. So I wanted to share these with you, and many of you here, I'm sure, are familiar with a lot of these books, but these are my go-to books. These are the books that I study And they call me now and again to leave this one and go to that one. And I'm always inspired by what these authors have to teach about how we can change the way our life moves forward by the way that we change our thoughts. So Think and Grow Rich, people know. Outwitting the Devil, people probably don't know a lot about that, but that's a Napoleon Hill book that was written after he passed away, because he didn't allow it to be written, published before then. Very controversial book. As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. These are not new texts. These go back to the 20s and the 30s. The Power of Awareness, Neville Goddard. The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles. Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz. U Squared, Price Pritchett. Your Invisible Power, Genevieve Behrend. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Dr. Joseph Murphy. And Working with the Law, Dr. Raymond Hollywell. So one of my superpowers is that I'm able to draw your extraordinary story from your head, whether you know it's there or not, and I can help you bring that to the world. It's just an intuitive way that I see things from the top of the mountain. I see your success before you do. And then I realize that I'm doing for my clients exactly what Mrs. Gould did for me. She believed in me, and I believe in every single one of my clients. I believe in their power and their story. Right? So, and then I have an exceptional team. I have a publishing house. So we help you build belief in your extraordinary story, and then we help you bring it to the world. And gratitude wellness is just part of my expertise, because I have used the practice of gratitude wellness, realizing since I was a kid, but mostly consciously applying it during times of crisis. When my father passed away in 2012, that's when this book started to become a text that I knew that I had to share. And so I consciously applied the principles of gratitude for 365 days to see how I would feel as that became, momentum picked up from one day to the next. And I did that for 365 days. And then on January 1st of the next year, I took all of those little pieces that became big pieces, that became journal books of notes. And I realized that where I focused my attention, what we focus our attention on expands. And when you focus on things that you're grateful for, more things to be grateful for show up. So I used that practice, and then I wrote about that practice. And now I have readers that have expressed all over the world how that simple practice has changed the way they live their life. So super proud of that. I wanted to share this with you. This was just this weekend. Brene Brown, a lot of you are familiar with her, a researcher in Texas, love her. Her wisdom this weekend in the New York Times, there was this really great quote from her. A crisis highlights all of our fault lines, and we can pretend that we have nothing to learn, or we can take this opportunity to own the truth and make a better future for ourselves and others. And so when we talk about creating abundance during a crisis, I really love her words here, because I have expressed this since my first, when around the middle of March, I was giving an author retreat that I do every year in Florida on the West Coast at my condo, where authors come and work with me. And I had to leave halfway through that month and come back here. And I wasn't supposed to be back here. I had been traveling for for many, many weeks. And I went through that whole, emotional roller coaster of what's really going on out there. And I had to decide, how long do I want to stay in this feeling of unrest? How long do I want to stay here? And so I knew just from my study and from my practice that I had a choice. I could perceive this entire crisis as I wanted to perceive it. And so I switched the lens and I looked at it through the lens of opportunity. And that is how I have moved through this last 6 weeks, through that lens of, what am I being asked to do right now? How can I take this moment where we're all being asked to shift and change and redesign the way we do business, the way we conduct our lives, the way we spend time with people? I know about you guys, but Zoomathons have become my way of life. I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. But here's the thing. You can choose how you want this time that we're in right now, which is an extraordinary time. how you want to move through it. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that there's people all over the world that we're losing. There's people that are falling sick, and there's people that are passing away. So that doesn't take away from that. But while this is going on, we can live in a place of fear, or we can learn things about ourselves and about where we want to go and what we want to do, and then we can grow. It's like pulling back a slingshot. You know, when everyone else is kind of focused in one place, you can focus somewhere else and recreate the way you want your life to go, so that when everyone else kind of wakes up and this passes, because this too shall pass, then where do you want to be on the other side of this? So the question that I bring to the table more so is, where are you right now? But more importantly, where do you want to be in the weeks and the months ahead? So my question is, how are all of you feeling, right? In this stage of what I call the great pause, right? I find a global time of recalibration. It asks us all to see our world in a little bit of a different way. So how has your life changed in this last 6 weeks? How have you been asked to shift the way you think or the way your family moves about? I have children that live away. They don't live close. One lives close, two live in different places. So, you know, a little bit of a parenting and being concerned about our kids that are not necessarily living at home. I don't have young ones at home anymore. So here's the thing. You can take charge of your mind and set the course anytime, any day. Or Esther Hicks, Teachings of Abraham, or any of the other authors that I mentioned above. I'm sure you've heard this expression, right? You become what you think about. Thoughts are things. What you think about, you bring about. What you focus on expands. What does that actually mean? Right? So there's a really great excerpt in one of my favorite books by Dr. Raymond Hollywell called Working with the Law. And I'm just going to read it. It's two very short little passages, right? It's called Thoughts Are Things by Henry Van Dyke. So I hold it true that thoughts are things. They've endowed with bodies and breath and wings, and that we send them forth to fill the world with good results or ill. That which we call our secret thought speeds forth to earth's remotest spot, leaving its blessings or its woes like tracks behind it as it goes. We build our future thought by thought, for good or ill, yet know it not. Yet so the universe was wrought. Thought is another name for fate. Choose then thy destiny and wait. For love brings love and hate brings hate. This is about how your thoughts attract like thoughts, right? So this is a passage from Esther Hicks. So when you continue to focus upon any thought, it becomes increasingly easy to continue to focus upon it, because law of attraction is making more thoughts like it available to you. So emotionally, you're developing a mood or an attitude. Vibrationally speaking, you are achieving a habitual vibrational stance, a set point, which is mindset. Your mood shows you a good representation of what you are in, what you are bringing into your experience, which indicates the vibrational energy you are in. So you can change this at any time. So the law of attraction, I know a lot of people are familiar with it because of The Secret. Okay, there's many, many universal laws that govern us. We know about the law of gravity. We know how that works. We can see it. We understand it. It makes sense. But there's a lot of invisible laws. There's the law of attraction that people know of, but that people are less familiar with the actual primary law, because the law of attraction isn't the primary law. The law of attraction is governed by the law of vibration. So what is the law of vibration? Right? It's about how you feel. Your vibrational energy is like being at a frequency listening to a certain radio station. So have you ever walked into a room where you meet somebody and you kind of step back, you go, there's something that just doesn't seem right? Or you could be in business with somebody and there's something that you're just not clicking. And it's because you're kind of operating on in different planes, different frequencies. And so when you have people around you and you feel good, you're all kind of at that same stage. So I want to just read to you briefly. And when I've done this before, I've asked people to just close their eyes. So if you would just give me a few minutes and close your eyes, and I want to read back to you the emotional guidance system, according to Esther Hicks. And this gives you a bit of an idea of what the vibrational frequency and feelings and emotions are. So if we were to start at the lowest part of the emotional guidance system, people can relate to every single one of these emotions, but here's the thing. When you're in these lower vibrating emotions, you are going to attract exactly the frequency that you're on, okay? So your lowest vibrating emotion starts with fear. So I want you, if your eyes are closed, to just feel these emotions. Understand that they show up in all of our lives, okay? But there is a scale. And so if you start at the lower end of the scale with fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness, if you were to reach for the next best feeling thought, to move yourself up that vibrational scale just a bit to feel better, the next one is insecurity, guilt, unworthiness. And if you move it up another notch, jealousy, still lower vibrating emotions, but they get a little easier, each one that we move up. The next one, revenge. The next one, anger. The next one, discouragement. The next one is blame. One notch up, worry. Another notch up, doubt. One more, disappointment. Your next one, overwhelm. Your next one is frustration, irritation, impatience. Next best feeling thought is pessimism. The next one is boredom. The next one is contentment. And between this one and the next one, we start to change frequencies to a higher vibration. Your next one is hopefulness, optimism, positive expectation and belief, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness, passion. And right at the top, you've got joy, appreciation, gratitude, empowerment, freedom, and the very, very top is love. So if you think about those as frequencies, you know, if you're talking to somebody and you said, hey, listen, I heard this on the radio, you know, they say, I didn't hear that. And you weren't listening to the same frequency. You weren't listening to the same radio station as I was listening to. So of course you didn't hear it. This is what happens sometimes when people are in our world where we're all operating on different frequencies. So the higher the frequency, the more power you have. Well, you have the power at any frequency. So if you find yourself in the lower vibrating frequencies like revenge and worry and doubt and fear and discouragement, you're going to attract the same energies. Thoughts create more thoughts that are like those thoughts. So often when people are in those lower vibrating frequencies, these things they call bad luck keep happening because they keep attracting what they're thinking about. And then what our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our behavior, and our behavior creates the action that we take, and then the results that we see in our outer world, because our inner world creates our outer world, not the other way around. People often say, you know, I'll be happy when this happens in my outer world, but it's the other way around. Your most powerful asset is your thinking, and you have control over it. That's the good news. You can take your thinking, your imagination, your empowered thoughts, and you can create whatever you want. And you can, most importantly, move yourself into emotions that feel good from those that don't feel good. Okay, so This is a visual that I saw during the last 6 weeks that I really, really love. And it's about the fear, the learning, and the growth zone. And I share this with you today just to kind of accentuate what we've been talking about. So you don't want to focus necessarily on what is, you want to focus on what you want and where you want to go. So if we look at this visual, and this one's specifically for COVID, but it does not have to be just for COVID. Just a second. Let's see if I can bring it down so you can see it all at one time. So this visual says, who do I want to be during COVID-19? This could just as easily say, who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Where do I want to go? How do I want my life to be? So this first zone here is the fear zone. And of course, we can relate it to what we're seeing going on right now. And you may not be able to see it clearly, the writing's in black, but the fear zone on this visual says, I grab food, toilet paper, and medications that I don't need. It says, I spread emotions related to fear and anger, because whatever we're feeling, right, comes out, just like a radio broadcast. So it affects everybody around us. And that's where you kind of feel people sometimes around you and you kind of move back because you're within their zone, you're within their frequency, right? I complain frequently. I forward all messages I receive. I get mad easily. Now, that's not to say that during this time that we're not going to feel this fear, because we've all been there. We've all felt it. It can come and go, and that's, you need to feel emotions that come and go, but you get to choose how long you want to stay there. Okay. So when I found out that one of my sons was going to go to Northern British Columbia next week and just go out and work on a project, I dropped right into that fear zone. And I didn't even expect that would happen, but it did. And so I had to make that switch. I had to change my mindset right away because, first of all, it didn't serve me because there was really nothing to be afraid about, but I didn't want to bring that to him. Okay. So the fear zone. So ask yourself, where am I? You know, am I in that fear zone, or how often am I there on a day-to-day basis? And just kind of take a look at your, you know, how you're living your life right now and where your mind tends to wander to the most. Okay. And then the next zone here is the learning zone. So I start to give up what I can't control. I stop compulsively consuming what hurts me, from food to news. I identify my emotions. I become aware of the situation and think about how I want to act, which is what I had to do, which we all have to do. I evaluate information before spreading something false. And I recognize that we are all trying to do our best. So that's the next phase that that gives us a bit of ease, right? You feel a little better when you're in that place because you're not wrought with anxiety and fear. You're kind of allowing different perspectives to come into your awareness. And then, you know, you can read really great books. This is a time to spend really good time with friends, to be productive about, how do I want to change my business model? A lot of us have to come to terms with things not being the way they were, or expecting our, you know, certain business events like this one that's usually face-to-face, got to shift, right? You got to pivot. So how am I learning to do that? And make that something that is something you get to do instead of something you have to do. And then the next part of this shows us how to move from that learning zone into this. I even feel like you can change your posture just thinking about the growth zone. Okay. And being in growth, by the way, isn't necessarily comfortable, because we're outside of comfort zones when we have to, you know, put ourselves into growth mode where it's growing pains is often uncomfortable. But the only way that we grow as human beings is by getting uncomfortable. Because if you're not uncomfortable, and you're not growing. Okay, so getting out of your own way. So in the growth zone, I think of others and see how to help them. I make my talents available to those who need them. I live in the present and focus on the future. I'm empathetic with myself and with others. I thank and appreciate other people, and I'm sure we all have people every day that we're so appreciative that they're in our business life, our personal life, our family, our friends. So grateful for that. And I keep a happy emotional state and spread hope. Now that's all about your vibrational energy and where you show up and how you show up every day. And I look for a new way to adapt to new changes. So there's a really distinct difference in these three zones. So you want to say to yourself, okay, according to this model, where do I fit? Or where do I fit from day to day percentage wise? Am I spending like a good part of my day learning and growing? Or am I still feeling that fear and that anxiety for the most part and really not even thinking about those other things? So it's just, it's just a question to think about, to become aware of, so that you understand that you can move from one zone to the next anytime that you want, right? So the goal is to move from fear through learning to growth. So I can stop here for a second and stop sharing. Maybe, are there any questions? I can't see the questions with the shared screen, but if somebody can let me know if there's questions, I will unshare and answer them. Lynn,
I don't have any hands raised, but if anybody wants to.
Okay, there's no questions in the chat?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Yet.
Okay, perfect. So how do you do that? How do you move yourself? How do you change your vibrational energy? How do you feel better when everything around you doesn't feel very good? I learned to do it through retiring our marriage after 20 years. 15 years ago, we retired our marriage, and we've raised a generation of children since. We used gratitude as part of that practice. I used it through the loss of both of my parents. Gratitude was a practice for me, and of course, I use it. I've always used it, wrote about it, but most people don't really understand the power behind it. So here's some of the ways that I move myself from one place to the next place. And this is what I call my inner wealth abundance mindset. Okay, so again, abundance for some people means financial abundance. Abundance is everything. Abundance is your life, your world, your circle, your friends, your family, everything that is in your world today is part of your abundant life. Okay, so inner wealth, I have a practice every day called my hour of power. It's actually longer than that. But here's how I operate in my day. And then I can pop into any one of these practices anytime I need to flip that switch. Like when my son told me he was leaving, hopping on a plane and going to the northern part of British Columbia to be part of a government program to bring something much needed to the northern part of the province. So I had to switch out of that place that I kind of defaulted back to that fear place. So my practice in the morning starts really early, my hour of power, or 90 minutes of power. It starts with gratitude. So being grateful for me, it's a wellness strategy. It boosts my vibration immediately. And one of the strategies that Tony Robbins teaches at the Unleash the Power Within conference that some of you may have already experienced, I write gratitude every day in my own book, in fact. But one of his practices is even more powerful than that. He asks you to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You go within, you spend some time in meditative silence and quiet, and you actually recall the three things in your life that you're most grateful for, but you actually put yourself back in the moment of it. So I went right, the birth of my 3 kids, that was an easy one. And it became a really emotional experience for everybody around, because the moment you feel it, because the feeling is the secret, the moment that you feel that feeling, that's when your emotion shifts. And you can feel it. You can feel that shift. It's like talking to a friend and getting really great news, and right away your mood lifts up. That's what gratitude can do for you. So gratitude is a strategy I use every single day, and anytime that I need it, it's like my go-to. And every morning I visualize where I want my life to be. So not so much about visualizing today, it's visualizing, where do I want to go? What do I want? You know, what do I see? How do I see myself in 6 months, a year, 5 years? And then you visualize it, and feel that feeling of where you want your life to go. And then something that's really incredibly powerful that I've learned to do, which is what I call writing an as if life script. So Neville Goddard, if you're familiar with him, it's all about living in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So it's not about how you're going to feel, it's about how you feel when you get there. So often people say, well, you know, I'll feel that feeling when I get that thing, or when I get to that place. And in fact, for you to get to that place, you have to feel the feeling first. Right? So you have to feel it and believe it to see it, not the other way around. So every day I wrote out a life script. And what does my life script say? It says, I am so happy and grateful now that, in the present tense, as if all the things that I want to show up in my world are here right now. So when you connect to that energy in the present tense, it is it's like leaving breadcrumbs for your future to pull it closer to you. So I write, I am so happy and grateful now that, and then I write a whole paragraph, now that, and where my business is, where my family is, where my children are, where we are, where we're going, where we're traveling to, not where we're going to do those things, but as if they're happening right now. So it's a really powerful practice, and even better is if you can record it for yourself in your own voice and listen to it throughout the day, because you're now giving your subconscious mind the roadmap to where you want to go. Right? Movement in the morning definitely changes your energy and shifts your vibe right away. Listening within, that quiet time, that what I find in conversations I've had with a lot of people in these last 6 weeks, one of the things I think people are feeling uncomfortable about is actually just hanging out with themselves, right? They're not used to just being on their own without busying and distracting themselves with all the things that we all have to do, running around and going to offices and driving kids and going to appointments and traveling for business and all these things that we can't do right now. We can't distract ourselves. Some people, we're distracting ourselves with ongoing Zoom calls, but even then we are asked to kind of spend a little bit more time figuring out how we tick. And people are not accustomed to doing that. So I think this, for any other reason, is a really great opportunity for people to get a little bit more acquainted with themselves. For me, book study, super important. Every single day, I've got all the books. They're all around me all the time. And I noted some of those books above. And if anybody wants any information about any of those books, I can, roll up the slide afterwards and you can take a look. They're all incredible books to teach you how to use the power of your mind and how you have control over all of it. Business study, I study business concepts and have a business platform that I learn from every day. I have 6 daily action items that I write down. I write them down actually the night before, and I commit to them the next day, and I block off time to achieve those 6 items, not 400, 6. And if I don't get 6, I don't beat myself up over not getting 6, because most people don't even write them down. Most people don't even plan. Most people don't even set those goals. So if I get 4 done or 3 done, that's fantastic. Okay. One of the things I notice a lot when I talk to people, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We've all achieved so much. And our habitual mindset is thinking about what we didn't get done, what we didn't achieve. And here's the great news. We've all achieved so much every single day. And if you were to go back and review the chapters in your life from as far back as you want to remember, I challenge you to go back and write down all the lessons you learned, all the incredible success stories which contribute to your extraordinary story. Track those. Start giving yourself a pat on the back and congratulating yourself for achieving what you've achieved, overcoming adversity, getting through things you never thought you were going to get through. And that will give you a really great empowered feeling, right? I have a practice called Create Before I Connect, and I learned that a number of years ago from Brendan Burchard. And I practice it every day. So my phone, my Wi-Fi goes off at night, and my phone does not go on in the morning till 9 a.m. So I don't connect with the outside world until I say so. Because the moment I turn that phone on, the world's going to dump itself into my world. And I don't want that to happen until I'm good and ready. Right? And I don't know about you guys. I look at people, they wake up, they're barely awake, gotta check the phone. Okay? Don't do that. Give yourself a rest. The phone's important, laptop's important, business is important. Your mindset is more important. You get to decide the direction of your day. If you let the world dump itself into your day before you've had a chance to decide what kind of day you're going to have, it's going to hijack you. So you are in control of how your day goes by the way you prepare your mind. And that's my strategies in the morning. And at night, before I go to sleep, phone's off. I don't answer messages late at night. They can all wait till the morning. Gratitude, because the way we put ourselves to bed at night, the feelings that we feel before we go to bed when we put ourselves to rest, are the way that we're going to wake up in the morning, right? So you want to put yourself to sleep with these feelings of how grateful you are. What was the best part of your day? I have 180 pages in my book for people to write. There's 250 quotes to inspire you in my book. But the only thing I ask you to focus on every page is, what are you grateful for today? And what was the best part of your day? And I guarantee you, if you remind yourself of that before you go to bed at night, you're going to feel so good, because chances are you forgot. You may be focused on the 10 things you didn't get done. And instead, you want to focus on all the things that you did get done. So write about what the best part of your day was and take that to bed with you. And then I plug into the beach, because my currency is the sea. So whether I'm meditating or spending time in the calm or writing my as if life script or writing gratitude, I'm always plugged into the ocean. Why? Because the ocean for me is certainty. Okay? It doesn't matter how my life is going. If I am at the water's edge, I have a sense of certainty, because the ocean's always going to tide go out, tide come in. Tide's always going to go out, it's always going to come in. I don't have to worry about that ever not being so. So that is what gives me peace, and that's what gives me a sense of calm. So find what that is for you. There's a lot of apps. I'm sure you all have them. There is the app called Calm. I have another one. There's a number of them. I encourage you to take some time. You know, maybe you have kids going, to school at home right now. More so than ever, you need a little bit of time to just unplug and to just be. And all of these are really incredible ways if you practice them consistently. It's like anything else. You go to the gym, you go once or twice, you're not going to see the results. But if you practice this consistently and you pick one thing that you're not accustomed to doing now and integrate it into your day, I promise you that you will see the results, and you will see a really incredible sense of calm come over you. I think there may be a couple of questions in here, so I'm just going to stop sharing the screen just for a quick second. Is there anything in the chat? Yes, okay, great article there. Yeah, super. Yeah, so I wanted to share with you a passage do we have time for me to read a passage? Okay, so I want to show you, I'll go back to the shared screen in a second. I want to share with you a book, and it's a small but mighty book. And it was written many, many years ago, back in the 1930s by James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. So at the very back of this book is the very last chapter. And I'd like to read it to you. It's about 2 pages. It won't take very long, but I think it will be valuable. This is something that when I first met Bob Proctor and started to work with Bob, it's the first thing he hands you and asks you to do. He says, I want you to go to the chapter called Serenity, which is at the back of James Allen's book, and he actually hands it to you. And he says, I want you to not read this. I want you to write this entire chapter. It's just like 2 full pages every single day for 90 days. And he said, this is the very first thing I'm going to ask you to do. And I'm asking you to do it for 90 days. Some of you aren't going to do it at all. Some of you are going to do it for a day or 2. But I promise you, if you do it for 90 days, you're going to change your life. Okay? And so this chapter called Serenity is all about the calmness of our mind and how that calmness of our mind can change our entire life. So James Allen writes, calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It's the result of long and patient effort and self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. A man becomes calm, man, it's written a long time ago, a man or a woman becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being. For such knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as the result of thought, and as he develops a right understanding and sees ever more clearly the internal relations of things by the action of cause and effect, that's your thought, creating the results on the outside, he ceases to fuss, fume, worry, and grieve. He remains poised, steadfast, and serene. The calm man, having learned how to govern himself, knows how to adapt himself to others, and they in turn reverence his spiritual strength. They feel that they can learn from him and rely upon him. And the more tranquil a man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, and his power for good. Even the ordinary trader will find his business prosperity increase if he develops a greater self-control and equanimity, for people will always prefer to deal with a man whose demeanor is equitable. The strong, calm man is always loved and revered. He is like a shade-giving tree in a thirsty land or a sheltering rock in a storm. Who does not love a tranquil heart? A sweet-tempered, balanced life, it does not matter whether it rains or shines, or what changes come to those who possess these blessings, for they are always serene and calm. That exquisite poise of character that we call serenity is the last lesson of culture. It is the flowering of life, the fruitage of the soul. It is precious as wisdom, more desirable than fine gold. How insignificant mere money-seeking looks in comparison with a serene life. A life that dwells in the ocean of truth, beneath the waves, beyond the reach of the tempests, in the eternal calm. How many people we know who sour their lives, will ruin all that is sweet and beautiful by explosive tempers, who destroy their poise of character and make bad blood. It's a question whether the great majority of people do not ruin their lives and mar their happiness by lack of self-control. How few people we meet in life who are well-balanced, who have that exquisite poise which is characteristic of the finished character. Yes, humanity surges with uncontrolled passion, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown about by anxiety and doubt. Only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purified makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. Tempest-tossed souls, wherever you may be, under what conditions you may live, know this. In the ocean of the isles of blessedness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hands firmly upon the helm of thought. In the core of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does not sleep, wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace, be still. So I wanted to share that passage, and I hope you felt the power of that passage that has been shared and read by millions and millions of people around the world. So quickly, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to share my screen with you again and just conclude through getting in touch with me if you should so desire to do so. So Carolyn Flower International is carolynflower.com, is Carolyn Flower International site. I have the websites above, which I can put in the chat. And I invite anybody who wants to come and join me in my community, which is called Your Extraordinary Stories Facebook community. You can go and find me there, come and join us. It's an incredibly empowering, inspiring group of people, of thought leaders and creators and best-selling authors, clients of mine, people that are writing books, in the process of writing books, and of course, thought leadership strategies, mindset. We talk about that all the time. And on Wednesday nights on Zoom, and I've been doing it for a long time, I have a group at 8 p.m. Eastern Time every single Wednesday. It's called the Your Extraordinary Stories Inner Circle Mentor Call. And that's where a lot of people join me on Wednesday. And I have guest speakers and I highlight some of my incredible authors, and I bring in some of my team members and I highlight certain things that's important to the group to talk about. Okay, and then if you wanted to schedule a consult with me, I can make that very possible for you as well. So that's it for bringing our minds to an abundant place to be able to move ourselves through any kind of crisis or any kind of life experience that requires us to kind of take a deep breath and move through it. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Angela Pearson, who is in the room. She is one of my children's book authors who's about to launch a book very, very soon. And okay, would anybody like to unmute or put their camera on? Or Lynn, Anna, Rachel, do you want to lead any type of a, invite anybody to ask any questions or share anything that does anybody have anything to share? Where you're at right now, how you've been moving through this whole process, how you're looking at where you're going down the road, any plans to change anything at this time or to aspire to move into, a new personal or professional place after all of this is through?
Yeah, we'd like to open up the floor if anyone would like to share, according to Carolyn's. What were the 3 stages where you are? And this, was it fear?
Fear, and then learning, and then growth.
Okay, where you are, something you're grateful for, and or what is one thing you'd like to accomplish during the great pause? We'd like to open up the floor in here.
It's an opportunity to just kind of give where you're at and where you're going a little bit of extra thought, because we do have a little bit of extra time. So right now, when authors come to me with one of their age-old, alibis and say, I don't have time to write a book, I go, really?
Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, Angela. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad that I was able to make it. I am actually one of Carolyn's clients, and I actually met Carolyn because we were both in the Grant Cardone
mentorship group.
Program. And like Carolyn said, I just wrote a children's book, and I met her through this whole mentorship program, and was so fortunate enough to meet someone who can actually help me bring life to my book. And she's been wonderful. Through this whole quarantine, I've been working on the illustrations with my illustrator. I've been working with Carolyn. And I think my biggest fear through all of this is probably public speaking still, and like talking in front of people. So yeah, I think this is what I'm going to be challenging myself to do within the next few days, actually.
Yes, you have a speaking engagement, and what a blessing it is to have a chance to kind of get more accustomed to speaking when you're in this environment in a room. And by the time these events come back into their live versions of themselves, everyone will have so much more experience doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's true, like, with what you were saying earlier, you go back to your childhood and things that, maybe people have said to you along the way, whether I was bullied and I was in a horrible relationship. So things stick, and it's hard to get past that and to kind of move forward sometimes. But, just working on yourself and self-developing and focusing on things that are much bigger in life, like developing a message like the book that I have written, and it gives you more meaning. So you kind of get over all that fear and you kind of force yourself because it's bigger than what you're dealing with over here.
Yeah, it's 1,000%. And we say that often, when authors feel like they're in that place, they call it a writer's block. I don't believe that exists. It's just, it's really just it's resistance, and it's fear, and it's inaction. but here's the thing, the more you do it, and you think about how you're serving somebody else, how your book is now going to help another. Mm-hmm. When you look at it through that lens, through that perspective, all of a sudden, whatever fear or resistance you had kind of fades, because your purpose is so much bigger. Mm-hmm. Right? It's and like you have a whole generation of people to inspire with your message.
Yeah. And well, it's like, even when you're a mom and you have to protect your baby, you might be afraid of something that's out there, but when you see something like that, it's like you don't even see that anymore. It's like the bear comes out in you. And I think the same holds true when you have a bigger message to share, especially when you're your child's voice and you're their advocate. You have to speak up and speak loud and not care about what other people are going to be thinking. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're sending out positive vibes and leading life with compassion, that's the only thing in life that really matters.
You bet. Wow, well said. Right? Leading life with compassion and with love and with good intention. And there's always going to be people that show up in your circumstance that, I think of life as a train. And, sometimes we take that train and we think that all those people are meant to sit with us on that train for the whole duration of the journey. And they're not all meant to. Sometimes we grow and we move past, we move beyond. Not that it has to be a destructive thing. It's just sometimes we move past people and we grow beyond where other people are willing to maybe not grow themselves. So you grow apart. And so every once in a while when relationships just kind of move apart, I say, well, I guess they were just meant to get off the train. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean they won't get on the train again, maybe down the line someplace. And that's happened to me. So I'm sure it's happened to other people where you just kind of don't have that friendship now. But then somewhere when you have something in common, could be a decade later, they get back on the train. So the most important thing that you really want to think about is, who am I showing up as? And that's when at the very beginning, I said, becoming an author. Becoming an author is a lot different than writing a book. It's who are you becoming? Because when you become that next version of yourself and step into that new role as an author, you are an authority. That's where the word comes from. You are the authority. You are a leader. Okay, so what you are going to want to do is start thinking that way and feeling that way and behaving that way, and then you become that you keep thinking about. So all of a sudden you have belief in your story. All of a sudden you don't worry about judgment. All of a sudden you want that book out there as fast as possible, and you want to get up on a TEDx stage because you can't wait to share the message, because you have now become the author. Right? And you're right in that, the gap. right? You're right in the middle of that growth spurt, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I love to watch it. I love it because we all fit into this place sometimes that I call the gap. I have one of my kids that lives in the UK, and you get off the tube in the UK, get off one of their buses, and there's that they call mind the gap. There's that place you could get your foot stuck in between the two places, and be careful of that because it hurts and it's uncomfortable and it's painful. I think of life chapters that way. Sometimes you feel like you're square in the middle, like you got your foot caught and it's really uncomfortable, and you're in that gap and you're becoming the next version of yourself, but you're not quite there and you're not quite there. You're somewhere in the middle. And when you're there and when you feel that, which a lot of us feel right now, we kind of don't know where we're at or where we're going, keep moving. It's the best place to be. That discomfort or that, like you said, going and speaking, move toward that fear because it's calling you, right? It's calling you to grow. So that's the goal, is to get to the growth zone. Anybody else? Thank you, Angela. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Does anyone else have anything to share? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Sure, I'll go ahead and share a story.
Hi, Becca.
Hi. There have been so many things that have been said throughout your talk and even just in the previous comments that it's kind of just blowing my mind because there are so many things that are relevant to me right now. And even today, I had a really, really interesting moment today, and I wasn't prepared for this meeting to really connect with that. And so I'm having this great experience. And by the way, thank you for Angela for sharing that. I do want to comment, like you said, abuse and trauma sticks with you, and it sticks with you more when you're young. And it sounds like you had some trauma when you were young. And so to be able to get past that it takes so much strength, and it pays off so much to be able to break away from what has harmed us in the past and the trauma from our past. So in a nutshell, as much as I can get it into a nutshell, the revelation I had today, basically, I mean, it's kind of small, it's very concrete, but I have known since I was 14 years old that I wanted to be a translator. I love languages, it's my biggest hobby. Well, fast forward to when I was 17, and I went to boot camp to become a nuclear technician in the military, and my heart was kind of broken because I felt like I had left this dream. And I kind of kept chasing this dream here and there, went back to school while I was in the military and got my degree and everything, but nothing was ever happening. So during COVID, this is my kind of like what I've done with the time. I've gotten to telecommute a little bit because the things on the production line have kind of allowed me to do a little bit of my roles at home. And so I've kind of revived that dream, and I've said, you know what, I want to get back to that. So I've been researching like crazy how I make that happen, how I get into freelance translation. And it's a lot of being beaten down by people who are high up in the field and say, you can't do it, it's hard to be successful and everything. And I've tried to take the positive snippets, because you can listen to everybody who tells you you're not going to make it, but if you listen to these people who say you can make it if you do this, well, the interesting thing I found out is that if you want to be successful at all as a translator, if you ever want to survive, you must have a specialty like engineering. And so, from the time that I was 17 until this very moment, I'm 30, I have thought that I have just like wasted this time. It's the gap that you just talked about. I thought I was in that gap. I thought that gap set me back in life, and now I know that it didn't.
It happened for you all this time.
It totally set me up to be successful for what I want to do in my entire life, both as a career and as a passion. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. And so everything you've been saying, I'm like, what? It's real.
Sounds like a few things you were meant to hear. Isn't that sometimes the way? You ever get called to read a book and you hadn't thought about the book, and the book calls you and you go, okay, you go read the book, you go, oh, okay, now I know. I was meant to read this or hear this or listen to this. Well, congratulations on it. So have you figured out how to are you starting a business? Are you, on your own?
So essentially, when you start becoming a freelancer, thank you, Angela. When you start becoming a freelancer, you're kind of starting a business on your own. So per se, I'm not starting, something with a different business title and website and everything. But currently, it is just a lot of, it's job hunting, and freelancing is like having a second job. So when I'm done working, I kind of work toward getting all of that set up, toward all the translation stuff, and even what you've talked about just looking into the future and knowing what that's going to feel like, and thinking about what that's going to feel like today, because I know factually, COVID, by the way, has just destroyed translation and interpretation. Just for this time, people aren't getting contracts who are very high level translators. So I have to be prepared for the fact I might not get a client for 2, 3, 4 months. And so I have to stay positive, and I have to know today that I'm doing everything I can to make it, and I'm going to make it. And so I love your advice, because if I'm having a tough day, I've already had some tough days where it's like, oh, how did I not get that client? Or how did this person give me such not very nice advice, basically. But if I can go to bed every day saying, I'm going to put myself in the feeling of right now being successful, truly being what I want to be, that's going to get me to my goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Feeling is the secret, and that is Neville Goddard stuff. If you're not familiar with Neville Goddard, his work is exceptional, and that is the essence of all of it. So I could even give you another strategy: writing affirmations every single day, as if it has already happened. So your affirmation would have something to do with, now that it's happened, how many clients you have, or that you have your own business, and how those clients are coming in, or a revenue stream that you're looking to accomplish, or a size of your business. But if you write that, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and real. Okay. It's completely subjective. So you can keep delivering to it the messages that you want to deliver to it. And if you do that with strict consistency, because repetition, it's the power of repetition. You have to do it over and over and over and over and over again. It's like when we were kids and we did something and the teacher said, you got to go write lines. It was to remind you not to do it, but they were teaching you the opposite. I will not do this, I will not do that. Well, that's not what we want to do. We want to write down what we are doing right now. Actually, get in touch with me after the call, because one of my colleagues through Grant Cardone, that I know very, very well, has got a translation agency. And I'm pretty sure that she would be looking for experts to be on her team. And so that may just be another avenue for freelance, but she's got the business set up. You wouldn't have to do it. You would be, part of a team. And maybe if you were part of a few teams like that, where they're doing a lot of the legwork, then you could start picking up clients.
I will definitely get
because businesses have to think of where we're going to go after this.
Right.
We have to prepare people for the other side of this. So it's not enough to say, we're not using translation services. You're going to have to, at the end of this, have a business that's still functioning. So you have to keep moving toward it. So reach out to me after the call, Becca, on Facebook, or that's the fastest way to get a hold of me. And then I will connect you with, her name is Amanda Campello. And I will connect the two of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
And congratulations. Keep that dream alive. Love it.
So Carolyn, I think we're going to wrap up, but I just want to piggyback on what Becca said. So I study neuroscience hacks for fun because I'm a total nerd. So it's funny when you mention the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference, because it doesn't. But the other interesting fact about your subconscious is it never shuts off.
Right.
So when you're sleeping, you can reprogram your mind through subliminal message, either that you have recorded or just recordings on YouTube. And there are millions of them.
I've used them.
Yeah. There's also software you can buy called Mind Zoom and Mind Movies.
Yeah.
To just make those neural networks of like, this is my future. I can feel it now. And they're very, very helpful.
Super powerful. And they're the megahertz, or, the binaural beats and all of that kind of stuff. But that's why when we go to bed and we want to be in that feeling of being grateful, that's how you want to put yourself to bed, in that feeling. Because that's how that's what your mind receives before you go to bed. If you add those strategies onto it, I mean, there's so many ways that we can create the life that we want. And what I just want everyone to take away, if nothing else, is that you have the power within you to do it anytime you want. It's not some, big thing that you have to buy, not something you have to go mortgage your house for. You have it within you, and you can access it any day, anytime. So if you remember that feeling is the secret, then you want to choose really good feeling thoughts. And then activities that make you feel really good. And the more you feel good, the more things to feel good will start showing up in your life. And you'll move through that fear zone, through your learning, into growth. And then you can create whatever it is your heart desires. So thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. So many good insights and advice, and I so much appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody for being here.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.